it with everybody else. So
That's-
welcome, Sian.
Thanks, Bridie.
I
Thanks for
always,
having me. I'm very excited to
I,
be here chatting.
I always feel a bit strange with these things because you feel like you're talking to yourself, but this is so nice having you here and actually having a face to chat to. So um, I'm really, really grateful for you coming along tonight and bringing your amazing expertise and wisdom,
Thank you.
because there's a lot of people at the moment that could really benefit from your expertise and the strategies that you know so well that can help people, especially during this really, really challenging time. So if it's okay by you, I thought if you would like to just give a bit of an overview of your background and sort of what your area of speciality is, if that's okay.
Sure. um, so I've got kind of an interesting journey, I guess, that's brought me to this point. I've done a lot of varied things that have kind of woven my tapestry to bring me to the wonderful work that I get to do every day now. But basically, now I'm a clinical play therapist, a parent consultant. I also work with schools and educators, with mental health professionals, and I'm very much a brain and behavior geek. So I teach people about the brain, about their children's brains, about their own brains, about regulation, about tools, practical tools and strategies to help us with all of these things. So I do kind of a lot of training, a lot of consultancy, and I also run a private practice working with kids and families as well. But in my previous lives, I used to be a performer, so I was a singer and an actress on stage, and then I actually started teaching music and yoga and art and drama and all these wonderful creative tools. And I started to see, like, I guess I got into it myself because a lot of things going on in my own young life, and we had a lot of stress in our family, and I guess it was my way to help myself build self-esteem, build confidence, find my voice, and get my needs met through my performing. So that's how it started. And then I guess it deepened as I grew older and I started teaching these things, and I started to see the absolute transformations in the people, in the children, the adults I was working with. And then I went back after doing performing arts degree and working in the industry professionally for a long time. I then went back and studied psychology, and then did all my postgraduate work in clinical play therapy. So it's kind of pulled together my 30 years of expertise in play, creativity, and psychology, and brought me to where I am now. So I'm very, very passionate about educating the systems around our children. I very much believe that we have the ability to help evolve the human brain and build better brains and more intelligent brains, emotionally intelligent brains, in this generation, in our care. And so I'm always kind of working with the adults around strategies about how we do that for our kids and for ourselves. That's me in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So thank you again for giving up your time to come along and chat tonight. I guess one of the motivations for getting this collaboration tonight was that so many people have been reaching out to not only yourself, but to me as well, finding that this time round with our lockdown, particularly in Melbourne, that people are quite sensitive. There's lots of big emotions going on. Some people that might have been feeling quite settled the first time round and now starting to feel, I guess, quite anxious about being back in lockdown. I've certainly noticed, checking in with a lot of the children I work with, that they're really struggling, a lot of them as well. And I just thought it'd be great to have you on to maybe talk about some of the strategies, what trauma can look like, because certainly when we were introduced through the Nurture Group program that you taught all of us at our school, I wasn't aware of really what trauma meant. So in my mind, I sort of thought trauma meant, abuse, like physical abuse.
We think extremes, don't we?
Yeah.
That word, we don't necessarily understand what it means from a nervous system, body and brain point of view.
Yeah, so I love that you were able to sort of empower me to understand that a little bit more. That certainly helped in my teaching practice, but also as a parent. So I thought maybe if you could give a little bit of an overview about the trauma that we're going through at the moment, and sort of maybe some of the behaviours we may be seeing in not only ourselves but our children as well.
Yeah. And I love that you added in ourselves as well, because, you know, so much of my work is about, you know, working with the whole dynamic, the whole system, because, you know, there's not time to go into all the complexity of the science of our mirror neuron system and things like this. But essentially, our children mirror off our nervous system states, and they're constantly actually regulating off us. Yeah. So we can't look at our children's behavior in isolation. So we have to actually look at what's going on for both parties, and then work out how we resource and support both parents and kids. The reality is that COVID is a mass scale worldwide trauma event. You know, I'm part of a number of international therapist groups, and we've all been talking. And at the start of the first lockdown in Melbourne, one of a very well-known trauma therapist in the States, and she said to us therapists who are always like, but that's right, like you guys, like you teachers, right? Everyone, like frontline kind of workers in holding space for other people.
Yeah.
We went, we've got this right. We're just going to transform our practices. We're going to do it all online. We're going to research everything we need. We're going to, you know, exactly like you guys have had to do. And so we stayed in this busy mode, right? That's how we processed the stress the first time around. And she said to us all, be aware that this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. And you need to be prepared for that in terms of your own regulation and resourcing and self-care. If you do not do that, you are going to burn out within a couple of months, because you are trying to not only deal with your own nervous system and everything going on, and your families and your work, but you're also trying to hold the space for so many other people and keep so many other people as regulated as possible and help them understand what's going on for them. And that's a lot on anyone's shoulders if you're not resourcing yourself. So that's really stayed with me. I have to do the practice as much as you guys listening. I had last week, I definitely, going into this second lockdown, I definitely was hit with that wave of absolute exhaustion and sadness and heartbreak for my kids, for my clients, for all children. And I think part of that is the grief of letting go of all these things that we become attached to, like celebrations of our birthdays and having our family, extended family and friends around for those things, our travel, our holidays, all these things that we kind of look forward to, you know, and they keep us very future focused. And that's been taken away from us. So when we talk about the definition of trauma, which is what you referred to earlier, trauma simply means, right? It simply means a perceived threat. Perceived, right? So what might be traumatic for me will not be or may not be traumatic for you. It's different, and it all depends on your own trauma history. So what you actually carry with you from your past. So people that have had a whole lot of trauma in their lives, that haven't had necessarily the buffering of good positive relationships to help them make sense of those experiences, are going to be carrying a heavier load, in a sense, than some other people that may not be carrying that. It's actually this massive.
I've just put the feed on live because we have had some technical difficulties. So we will have some people joining into the meeting, if that's okay. Sorry to
that's fine. Yep, fantastic. More the merrier.
We'll be like the Bridie bunch.
That's right. And it's pre-recorded, so they can always get
thank you.
Start again. So we were defining trauma. So trauma basically is just a perceived threat to your safety. Okay. It also involves feelings of loss of control, powerlessness, no hope, things being kind of removed and taken from you, sustained periods of what we call toxic stress, which simply means, which is what we're in at the moment, which simply means that we're in these periods where our brain's flooded with high levels of the stress hormone, which is called cortisol. All right. When that happens, it shuts down our thinking, learning, and memory systems in the brain. It really affects the way that our brain's able to regulate, which is, it plays out as behaviors. And as we've been talking about, there's a lot of big emotions that we'll be seeing. And it takes away our ability for a lot of our self-control. So we're left with these very primitive systems in control that are actually feeling threatened. So that's our brain stem, which is the bottom part of our brain. It's the first bit of our brain to develop. And the limbic system, which is our emotional system and our stress response system. So our big emotions. So that's kind of what is running the show at the moment for so many of us, for adults and for children. So if we're operating out of these lower systems of the brain, it makes it harder to be doing our learning, to be doing our thinking, to be making good choices, and to be staying regulated with our emotions. I think for so many people I know at the moment, we're kind of going like this.
Yeah.
And we'll have days where we'll sink into the sadness and the exhaustion. Then we come up for air and we're like, oh, it's not so bad. I got to go out in the sunshine today. And then you're back down, right? That is normal. That is, and I think we need to talk about that. That's normal for me. And I know this stuff, and I have a lot of tools. So it's normal that we are feeling like this. There's nothing wrong with you if you're feeling like this. This is what trauma feels like from a somatic level in your body.
Yeah.
Okay, it's because your body experiences the trauma. One of the most famous trauma books is actually called The Body Keeps Score by Bessel von Colt. And if you want to, it's a bit of a dense read about trauma, but it's incredible. Like, it just changes your whole lens on understanding what trauma is and how it gets held in the body and how it plays out in behavioral patterns and in emotions and in our ability to be able to form or not form healthy relationships, social functioning in our lives, things like that. So yes, we are definitely in a mass trauma event at the moment. The key when you are going through trauma, right, is we can't do a lot of processing of it, but there are keys that we can help ourselves with and our children with to be able to keep moving through these states of threat and shutdown that our body is going through with this high stress state that we keep getting locked into. So these behaviors might look like anger. So we might be getting lots of fight or flight kind of symptoms. So lots of big periods of anger and meltdowns. They might seem to be about the simplest things. Not really about that. That's kind of just the trigger because our emotions are so near the surface right now. Or we might be getting, in my little one at the moment, floods and floods of tears, over the littlest things. And the heartbreak, and you can hear it, you can hear the heartbreak that I don't get to see my friends and I don't get my version of normality and safety and routine and ritual in my schooling experience. And I think particularly for the little ones, that's so hard, that disruption. What that does for them. And we might have heightened anxiety. Now that can look like regression of behavior. We were talking about this earlier, Bridie. And I'm sure many of you might have experienced this in yourselves or your children, regressive behaviors. And so that can look like wanting to go back and share your bed again. That's a really common one. It can, in extreme states of high stress, it can look like return to things like bedwetting. It can look like being scared of lots of things, right? Our brain works in patterns. Our brain works in narratives. We need to make sense of things. So if my nervous system's receiving threat responses from the world around me all the time, I have to create a narrative around it. So what I'm hearing a lot from kids is we're telling lots of stories about monsters and being killed and houses going on fire, and maybe I won't wake up, and maybe someone will take my mom, and maybe I'm gonna, and it's constant, right? And that's their way of
mentioned that, because that is something that I've been seeing. And even when I was at school supervising the other day, everything was about these
catastrophic.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
But that's healthy. Okay. So let's not panic around that. That's healthy.
Yeah.
Because they are trying to, our children are often a lot better at this than us. Okay. Because they are so attuned to those the more right brain kind of dominant systems, which is around images and sensations. And so they try to create stories around it, right? To make sense of what they feel inside.
Yeah.
Whereas we intellectualize a lot and shut down to these things rather than regulate through them, and then get stuck in more chronic states. So, but kids generally are motivated to move through these things if we understand what they're doing and allow them the support to do it, right? So, for example, this week, my little one that I was saying, is really feeling very sad right now. They had all these pictures they could choose from for a creative writing prompt at school, all these amazing, beautiful pictures. He chose the picture of a woman getting dragged into a pile of dirt and drowned.
Oh, no.
Right? And
Leon, Pippa picked the same one.
See, you can see, it's incredible. Yeah. Isn't it incredible? And like reaching out and screaming for help. That is what he chose out of all of the pictures.
Right.
It's just incredible. When we understand what they're doing, they're trying to make sense of what's going on for them, right? So they'll pick a story to do it. He then went to the sand tray that I've got in my therapy room, and I had like this little nest set up. I'd done my own processing, had my own little family nest there with little eggs and my husband and I as little figures in there, and a castle wall around it all. And like the scary figures on the outside, it was all feeling very protected. He came in, knocked down the castle walls, brought the monsters in to attack the family.
Wow.
And I said, I said, is there any way out of this? Like, how are they going to escape? Like, can they hide? Like, what could happen? He's like, he turned the nest over and hid them underneath in the sand. He's like, they'll try and hide, but the monsters are still going to get them.
Sian, I love that you've given that example because, the talk, I know you are such a massive advocate for play, as am I. And, seeing that sort of play in the children is their way, I guess, you've sort of mentioned this earlier, processing.
Yes.
Processing their emotions.
It's healthy. It's really healthy, right? We want to encourage them to do it. I'm sure that you guys have seen, and my own children did it, and so many of my clients did it. The first time round, they went back to the trees. They were climbing trees. They were building tree houses. They were building forts. They were building caves. They were building safety and containment because their evolutionary brains were saying, when I am under threat, this in the past, in our evolutionary history as human beings, right, that goes way back, helped us to survive. They're automatically doing these things. So if we get in the way and go, oh, you better not climb that tree or you might fall, you better, to try and protect them, we're not actually we're kind of disempowering them, and we're not allowing them to actually go into problem solving mode to recreate that sense of safety that they need right now.
Yeah.
They need to play it out. Kids need to play it out and act it out and create this different narrative. And they probably need to do it every day right now as to what the reality is of the threat messages that are happening for them.
I so love that you've discussed this, because for a lot of parents, like you said, if they're seeing those sort of behaviours or they're seeing that sort of content coming out in either writing, particularly if they're doing remote learning, that is really something that, that's the way of them normalizing it. That's the way of them dealing with those emotions. Because certainly myself, I've had a lot of parents reach out and say, look, we can't, we're having lots of opposition, and we're having lots of meltdowns and things that weren't setting them off, like what you mentioned earlier, are now, and sort of how do I get them motivated to learn? And my advice has been very similar to yours in that let them play it out.
You know what my answer is.
Yeah, but would you mind just touching on that, if you wouldn't mind? Thanks.
So again, behavior is a symptom. Okay, so let's be curious about the symptom. So why is this child, the labels that adults put on their behavior, why is this child being defiant or avoidant or lazy or any of these labels that we put on, right, with our adult brain? what is actually going on for this child? Well, as I said before, in periods of high stress, which we call toxic stress, or high trauma events, it's the same thing. It does the same thing to the brain and nervous system. It has a massive impact in how we are able to function or not function particularly well in some cases. So what it's doing is it's shutting down this thinking, learning brain. So we're then expecting the child, so they're obviously in a lower brain state when they're behaving like that.
Yeah.
That's when they actually need to go and play it out. They need some movement to regulate. They need some connection time with you, because the healthy relationships are the buffer to trauma. Right? That's the foundation. The regulation, movement, and relationships. They are the buffers to trauma and to coming out of this with our mental health intact, which is obviously what we all want, and for us as well. And if you look at COVID, it's a specific kind of trauma, because the things that as human beings that we actually use to regulate ourselves, right? It's a process called co-regulation. We get our regulation off social cues of other people around us. That's how our nervous systems regulate and come back into our zone of regulation and tolerance. And so the very thing that we would use to reach out, when we're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, is actually being forcibly removed from us. We're saying people aren't safe. It's not safe outside your house. You can't see your friends. You can't connect with all these people that make you feel good, that helped you process things, that you got to talk to. You can't do that in the same way. So we're putting all these barriers in. And from our brain's point of view, the basic needs of the brain are around safety and connection with other people, because we're mammals, we're social animals.
Yeah.
We need this to survive for our mental health. So it's taking away those key things. And so, yes, we can do it through screens, and that's what we're all trying to do, right? As to the best of our ability. It's a lot harder. We're not able to get the same regulation through a screen that we can face to face through our nervous systems. It's harder to read the little cues that are going on between people. But that's all we can do right now.
Yeah, I found a couple of incidences the other day when as I said, when I was at school. I'm very aware of the kids and their emotions and watching how they're sort of traveling through their day, because for me that is the most important. We check in with the kids, we make sure that they're feeling safe and grounded, and had a couple of things where all the kids really they just want to cuddle. Are there any strategies that you could suggest that could possibly at this time appease that when we can't nurture like we would love to do?
Are you talking about for parents or for teachers? Because they're a slightly different relationship right now.
I guess a bit for both, because some educators at the moment, obviously we're online at the moment. You yourself as a therapist is online. What sort of strategies could we use perhaps to appease that?
So I think, first of all, you need to sit with the discomfort that we can't fix this.
Yeah.
I think that we actually have to accept that.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing that's the heartbreak for me as a therapist, because that's my job. Right?
You.
So, but it's your job, right? As a teacher, right? So it's accepting that we can only do so much, but the things that we can do are the things that I mentioned before, the priorities in terms of regulation and mental health and well-being, and being able to keep people processing through this trauma event, moving your body. All these things sound really, really simple, right? But they go out the window as soon as we get stressed and we forget them. If we prioritize doing these things every day, we are going to be in a lot more regulated state. If we as the adults are in a more regulated state, we are the anchor for our children. Our children can be in a more regulated state, and we will have more capacity to be able to offer them what they need to help them make sense of what's going on. So moving our bodies, trying to get outside at least for a little bit of time every day, even if it's only walking around the block, you know, getting your body moving, trying to get some sunshine when it's there as much as possible.
Yeah.
Connection. So having family time, having present conversations with your children, playing heaps of games, joining them in jumping on the trampoline and playing chasey around the house and having Nerf battles and playing cards and all these games, you know, that are about connection and safety and regulation and letting you know you're not alone. I know you're feeling overwhelmed. I know you're feeling scared, but you're not alone. We're all in this together, and we're all going to get through this together. And that needs to be the overwhelming message that comes out of this, that solidarity through, and as teachers, that as well. And I think, you know, obviously our school, Jane's here today, you know, our school, I think, has been doing an incredible job of just that, you know, prioritizing the relationships, the daily check-ins, and making it as normal as possible in an abnormal environment.
One thing I loved, and I, you know, really hit me hard when we did our nurture group training was, just the power of those things that you're talking about, like the rhythmic connection, how much as grown-ups or adults we've forgotten to do those simple activities, you know, the clap, the you know, the shapes on back, all those things, the massage, the you know, all those grounding things that really help to regulate, particularly, you know, in those tricky learning situations when we're trying to do remote learning. I've just found them to be absolute lifesavers, to tell you the truth.
And that's fantastic. And because there are so many ways that we can regulate the body through movement. Mindfulness is one of them. So, you know, I often talk about a go-to activity for me, because I find that, you know, clients take it on really well. It doesn't take a lot of time to do. You can teach it to kids. So it's very practical and you can use it in all different areas, is that 5 things mindfulness grounding activity. Yeah. And I know you use it too.
I'd love you to show.
So basically what we do, it doesn't have to be 5 things, it can be 2 things if you want. Let's just do 2 things, right? Keep it simple. But it's basically about heightening your senses to make you aware of what's going on for yourself and your space and your body in this moment. And that is it. Nothing beyond that, just that, right? And the more you practice it, the more your brain starts to be able to exist more in that state. So let's do it together.
Okay.
So basically we would say, okay, let's find 2 things we can see without judgment, you know, without a thought attached or a narrative attached. We just kind of look around and go, okay, I can see a door. I can see a speaker. Okay. And then we go, okay, what are 2 things I can hear right now? If I really listen and just be present. So I can hear the whir of the computer, the motor. I can hear your voice, Bridie. And then we do, what can I smell right now? I can smell my perfume. I can smell the tea I was drinking. And is there anything I can taste? Do I have a taste in my mouth? Do I have a taste from dinner or brushing my teeth or drinking something? And then you do that next layer and just kind of do a bit of a scan of your body and just check in and go, and where am I at right now? What is my body telling me about what state I'm in right now? Now, sometimes that bit can be hard. If you're used to being quite disconnected from what your body's telling you, right? That can be hard, but you can train yourself to do it. I used to be terrible at it. I didn't used to have very strong connections into my body, and now it's very, very obvious to me what's going on most of the time. As soon as
such an interesting thing that you say that, because for all of us, I guess we, you know, if we were so attuned, like our body naturally tunes out to the background, doesn't it? Because we focus on what we think is happening right now. So to actually bring it back, like you just demonstrated, is so important, because we're constantly blocking those things that ground us in order, I guess, to almost block out a lot of the background as well.
Well, we do it through busyness, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
We do it, yeah, our society, busyness is the badge of honor and identity, and unfortunately that means that we often suffer with our physical or mental health, because we spend so much of our time actually not being present. Yeah. We're either just forward planning the future, which is really hard right now. So for us planners whose survival strategy is to live in the future and be anxiety driven about controlling and living in the future, you know, like me. Anyway, so, you know, this is hard for us.
Yeah.
Because we're literally having to go, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. This is my plan. But I have to be prepared to be cognitively flexible around it and just change.
And that's such an interesting point too, Sian, because the kids are so used to us being the ones that go, yep, this is happening, this is coming. Yep. We're preparing them for what's coming. Yes. And now we're finding ourselves in the point where we've got to say, actually, guys, I don't know. And all of us have had to, like on my feeds, I've sort of talked a lot about change and how we've had to become so adaptable to the, like, people like to go normal. You know, things are constantly changing, and while I love change, a lot of people don't like change. But I have to admit, even for myself, the change being so dynamic has really sort of made me sort of go, okay, I've got to check in, how am I dealing with this change? Okay, what does life look like now? And like you mentioned earlier, our little people are looking to us to, I guess, feel their way through this situation, and it is an unknown. So I can see
it is, and like I said, I think that's the hardest part for us. You know, we're used to being able to provide the safety and be in control and provide the direction, do all these things that we cannot do at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity for us to actually upskill.
Yeah.
To learn to be more present, like really present.
100%. Jane, did you want to ask a question or comment?
Yeah, I just thought it would be interesting, Sian, if you could talk about mirror neurons. It just popped into my head as you were doing the 5 senses, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm feeling a bit calmer myself now. And as we talk about this heightened state that we're all in, and our capacity to look after and care for our little ones, I think it would be really interesting to.
Yeah, I touched on it earlier, and
not to
go too deeply into all the neuroscience, but I'll give you a brief summary. So basically, our mirror neuron system sits here. We're in what I call the wise owl part of our brain, which is our prefrontal cortex, which is kind of also our self-regulation center, our center for empathy, for impulse control, for all these things that we expect kids to be really good at. But this area actually doesn't finish developing until they're 30. So we have lots and lots and lots and lots of years of parenting to do. So that's the great news. But basically, our mirror neuron system is, we share it with other mammals. We share it with other animals that live in social groups and need to be able to read the non-verbals of the social dynamic and the social situation. Using our mirror neuron system, we have the power to actually bring other people's nervous systems back into a calm state by actually inhabiting that ourselves. So for example, if your child's kind of losing the plot because they're just totally overwhelmed and they're having a massive meltdown, or it's showing as aggression, or they're hiding under the table, it's showing as a flight response, or as defiance, which is, again, fight response, or you're starting to see depression symptoms or anxiety symptoms. If you're seeing an extreme one, it's particularly anger, I find it's very easy to be dragged into it, right? So it's taking that beat, it's taking that moment and going, I can feel my own body starting to go and starting to match the chaos of this young person here. But I have a choice. I have a choice as an adult because I actually have a fully formed brain. It takes practice. I'm telling you, it took me a number of years It's not going to happen overnight, right? But each time you do it, you get closer to it, and you actually physically rewire sections of your brain to be better at this. And it becomes a superpower, right? So it's definitely worthwhile practicing. So you notice what's going on with the child. You notice your own physical body reactions to it. And you take a breath and you stop. And whatever grounding technique you want to use, you can clench and unclench your fists. You can breathe. Breathing doesn't really work for me if I'm already in that state. Some people it does, but you can try breathing. Particularly if for breathing you want to do double the exhale. So if you breathe in for 4, you want to blow it out for 8. Because it actually it switches you over from what we call a sympathetic nervous system response, which is that heightened stress response, to a relaxation response. So it actually helps bring down the stress chemicals in your brain. So you can use that, or if you really need to get out of the room, go to the bathroom, splash your face full of with water. That's actually an evidence-based way to also bring down your cortisol levels, believe it or not. It's part of your mammalian dive reflex. It's a whole other conversation. So if you can do that for yourself first, attach your own oxygen mask first, be the calm in the storm, then you can use certain skills like that I teach in my course, or your scripts and strategies that I teach in my course, about how then to actually get this child back into a calmer, regulated state. So that would start with actually naming and validating what you can see going on for the child. So if you can override your own stress response and get solid and say, wow, I can see you're just feeling so angry right now. You know, you're just so stressed, you're so mad, you want to take it out on me because your body's just full of rage. I get it. You know, and I've been saying to my kids a lot, most daily at the moment, you have a right to feel like this. This sucks, right? You have a right to be angry. You have a right to feel it's unfair that you can't see your friends. You have a right to feel sad. I am not going to shut those emotions down. But let's talk about how we can express them in a healthy way.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, because as parents, we're very quick to say, no, you can't behave like that.
But why do we do that, Bridie?
Yeah, I
why
think
do we do that?
That's our previous experiences coming and working through those.
This is it.
Yeah, interestingly, a situation at school again, because I've been around a couple of kids that are quite heightened, that one of them said to me yesterday, she said, you know, I'm not allowed to be angry at home. I said, yes, you are. I said, you're allowed to feel whatever you're feeling. Well, but I don't want to upset mum. And I said, you know what? You just need to talk to mum, because mum's feeling those big feels too. So I love you for saying that and mentioning that one, because you're 100% right with that. Like, we are so emotive ourselves, and we are very quick to say, no, you can't have those big feelings over this situation, or pull yourself together, or whatever it looks like. But acknowledging those feelings is massive.
Can I say, unless you acknowledge the feelings, how can you build emotional intelligence?
Yeah.
Yet we expect kids to be able to have that. But then we shut them down when they do emote.
Yeah.
Right. So it starts with that. That's step one. There are a number of other steps, but that is step one. Sure. Is to, well, step one's probably about ourselves. Step one's probably about actually working on getting in touch with our own bodies and our own body sensations, because the foundation of emotional intelligence is called body felt sense. It's the body language, the messages that the body sends us about what's going on for us. It comes up to the brain, and we create a story about it based on what our body messages are sending us, what's going on. And it's our nervous system that is firing at the moment and responding to all of the stress and the news every day, and the, you know, all of those kind of catastrophic things that are going on around us.
Yeah. I love that you, you know, given all of your experience and, you know, the work that you do, sort of said, even you've struggled a little bit. I feel the same. Like, I feel like I've done quite a bit of work on myself, and I'm trying to always work on myself, because I know that that's where it starts from. But even for me, like what you mentioned, this time round has certainly brought up a lot of things I thought I'd processed, and I thought that I'd built enough skill to move forward from. So like you mentioned, I think it's, you know, constantly something we need to work on. And I know you've got some amazing resources that I'm going to share after this that can help people as well. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, because I did last time around, I actually created a whole series on self-care for parents, and there's a manual and a video series of how to do a whole lot of different grounding exercises, mindfulness exercises, connection-based anti-anxiety exercises. And then I also created a whole series for kids as well, in things that we can do with our kids to help them when they're in those activated brain states as well.
Absolutely. I actually might share them now, Sian, and then see if anybody's got any questions, because you're just so knowledgeable. I love talking with you. I could talk with
I know. I could talk about this stuff all night, you know. We just
we do. And you know, I'm, as I said at the start of the session, which didn't make it to Facebook, but we've got a recording. I'm just so grateful that you came along tonight to give up your time and share these amazing resources and strategies to help people during this time. So I might just share that, if that's okay by you.
Yeah, thanks, Bridie. And I would just say, you know, in summary, with everything we've been talking about, if we can remember those foundations, to try and do them daily, if we can, for ourselves and our children, of moving our bodies. You know, again, it can be as simple as you were talking about, the rhythmic activities, throwing a ball back and forth, bouncing a basketball, sitting in egg chairs are incredible, hammocks are incredible. I actually set up this lycra material hung from our monkey bars the other day, and the boys have been spending most of their time in it and reflecting that it's the happiest that they feel when they're hanging inside their cocoon. So they've been loving these regulation experiences. So thinking about as many ways as we can to kind of regulate the nervous system. Lots of family fun and family connection. I know we don't feel like having fun, you know, when we're down as well, but it's amazing how, you know, even last week when I was kind of in my sadness, when, you know, my children were like, come and sword fight me, mum, come and find me, I'm going to go and hide. You know, once you started engaging, it shifted. The state shifted. Our emotions are not fixed. Our emotions are like clouds in the sky. They come and they go and they dip, you know, and it's working out how best to deal with yourself when you are in a dip. And play is incredible and so powerful for our brains and our nervous systems. And really, it's kind of the one-stop shop for so many different solutions, and the body movements, but having these connected relationships around us. And then the next layer, you know, if we want, we can give our child that experience of expressing how they're feeling, validating that they have a right to feel like that. And if you want to go one step further, saying, do you want to draw how you're feeling? Do you want to act out how you're feeling? Do you want to dance how you're feeling? Do you want to show me? Do you want to create a sand tray world of how you're feeling? Do you want to write about how you're feeling? Do you want to journal how you're feeling? All these creative tools are there to actually, like, from a brain point of view, it helps build what we call whole brain integration around the experience. It creates this narrative around the trauma, and that is the key to not getting stuck in the trauma, is to create a narrative that makes sense to us to help us keep moving each day through the trauma.
Thank you so much. If you're okay, I'm just going to share some of your resources with everyone, and I will post these on the page as well because they are absolutely amazing. Sian's actually also just released her first online course, which I'm really excited about.
Yes, well, yes, I did, because I've been asked for it for so many years, and it's based on a series I've run for parents for, you know, over a number of years in live workshops. And so finally, it's taken me like 6 months, but it's now out there. And it is fantastic because it really helps to kind of shift your lens and help you understand behavior as a symptom and what different things mean, and give you lots and lots of practical tools and scripts and strategies and ways to really help your children and yourselves through the process. So yeah, I think you put the links there.
Yeah, I will put the links. But while I quickly do a screen share, if anybody wants to have a think about any questions, any specific strategies you'd like to have a chat about, get those brains thinking while I share this. And then if you want to, we can, you can either jump onto the microphone if you're game, or you can type into the chat box. Sorry, I've got all these little messages because our live didn't work. Technology. Can everybody see my screen, or is it not coming through yet? Let's see. It's not going to work for me. Was that working? No.
It was working, Bridie.
Oh, thanks, Jane. I couldn't say.
Jane, did I answer your question on mirror neurons? Yes. Or do you want more information?
No, it's just interesting to think about what it is that we're, I guess, modelling, because the kids are really picking up on what it is and our attitudes at the moment. It's
100%, Jane. Yeah.
And it is like, and so it's kind of, it's, if you can even just in the most simplistic terms go, okay, you've got a choice. You can either join the kids, you know, in the chaos of the storm, or you can actually be the lighthouse in the storm for them.
100%.
You need to upskill to be the lighthouse, but you absolutely have the ability to do that. Absolutely, 100%. Everybody has the ability.
Probably not news to people that children would model what it is that they see of families, but I just remember you explaining one time that a child who had a hugely traumatic background had watched someone smile, and just that connection that they had made for that first time, having not seen people smile and be joyful before. So that actually makes the connections in the brain just by watching someone else do it. You don't have to experience it yourself.
That is right. So it's, well, probably the example that I'd given you was, because I often use this because it's a good way of describing it, is that basically, you know, if I've got my cup here and I take a sip of my tea like this, and it goes down my throat and I can taste it, and my brain's firing in a certain pattern based on that sensory experience that I just had. But the incredible thing is, at the same time as my brain firing in that pattern, your brain, if you're watching me perform that action, is firing in exactly the same pattern. So, so that's the amazing thing. We're actually building these same things. So if you think from the point of view of, if a child is continually watching a certain behavior being modeled to them, whether positive, you know, a positive or negative behavioral pattern, that's becomes the dominant structure, the dominant blueprint in their brain. It actually forms physically their neural networks in their brain. So then the likelihood of them actually repeating that behavior is extremely high, because that's what the physical networks tell them to do.
So that being said, Sian, sorry, because I could just talk about it. So while you're saying those connections can be made and they can often be detrimental, is there positive things that we can do, like the things that you've been talking about, to sort of rewire some of those things as well?
Yes, absolutely. So it's everything comes back to kind of prior to age 4 relationships. And if we look at the keys for those relationships, are all about, you know, co-regulation that I was talking about, and attunement, allowing the child to feel seen and heard and validated as their own person, right? As their own human being going through their own experiences, not through the lens of our adult brain and our perception of what we think, but trying to step into their world and see it from their point of view. I think that's the really big key there. And then there's lots of different activities that you can do to actually strengthen your relationship. There's actually a free course that I run on increasing the attachment with your child and relationship with your child as well. And so, but basically anytime you play and you make eye contact and you smile and you give them experiences of being, of confidence, of mastery, of feeling strong and powerful, as simple as, particularly at the moment, they need a lot of experiences of feeling strong and powerful. So we're doing lots of sword fights, we're doing lots of thumb wars, we're doing lots of races, we're doing lots of, you know, challenges. How long can you hang, you know, on that tree branch, or holding those monkey bars? How high can you swing? How these things, so that they feel this confidence and sense of power and freedom that essentially has been taken away from their little worlds right now.
Thank you. I'm just going to share across some of your... Speaking of children,
hello.
Talk to Daddy. Why do they come in my sessions? Why do they always?
They're allowed. This is a child
environment,
isn't it?
Like the whole, mum's in there working quick. I think every session I ran today for school, I had visitors, and the kids were like, "Hi." Very sweet, and they're all sort of craving that connection as well, I think.
That's it. They're desperate to connect to other kids.
Yeah, and oh gosh, the conversation's gorgeous. Yeah. So the kids at school have met my kids several times. So Sian, I'm just going to quickly go through some of your pages, and then we might open up for any questions. Yep. So this is one of the amazing groups that you can join from Sian's page for parents and educators. This kept me sane during the last lockdown, with resources, activities, just some advice. So people can just join into that.
You can absolutely just apply to join. And look, it is a fantastic community. I'm noticing this time around as well, people are asking questions, and like we had 18 responses from the community of like-minded, adults helping them. And I was like, this is what we want. Like, we've built this little community of people that kind of want the best for their kids, that are here to just learn as much as possible and support each other and grow together. And really, that's what it's about. And like Bridie said, there's lots of videos on there, manuals to download, lots of freebies and supports that you can grab as well.
Thanks, Sian.
Yeah.
This one is a resource I'm going to share also. So it's a downloadable Kids Calm Brains exercise book that you shared. So that one's also available there. And all these links will be posted as well. This is a little bit about what you were talking about the wise owl and the guard dog, and some strategies that we can look at there. Is there anything you wanted to add on that one?
No, there's lots of different blogs on there, so definitely get on the website, have a look, check out the Edgy Babble podcast as well, which is by my lovely husband, who is a teacher, and we've got a number on there that we've done together about engaging the whole brain in learning and things like that. So if you're interested in finding out more, you can also listen to some of those episodes.
Awesome. This one's another free downloadable for parents and self-care, and like Sian mentioned, where we really need to start with ourselves, which is often the hardest, but it's definitely the hardest,
but it's the most transforming. Like often when I'm doing work with whole families, often if we kind of get the supports and everything right for the parent, then the child's behavior actually just starts to change, and I don't even need to work with the child. So it's
it's amazing what we carry. That's for sure. And this,
you have to be kind. Yeah.
This is the really exciting part. This is Sian's course, which we'll also paste the link for. So if you do want to go deeper, educate a parent, whatever you're coming from, I highly, highly recommend getting in touch with Sian. And if you want to upskill, for myself, as an educator of nearly 20 years, the training that was, gifted to me, I like to say, through the school that I'm at, Victoria Road, I am just so grateful because, I work with a lot of kids that are left of centre, that need that extra support, and doing your training was like the piece of puzzle that I've been looking for such a long time, to just the ones that I did all of my tricks with and all of my approaches with, that I knew, worked education-wise. I'm just so grateful to have been part of that and to be able to use that in my practice. So thank you.
Thanks, Bridie. Oh, that's awesome.
All right. So I might just pop out of there. So we are going to open up for questions. Remember, if you're shy and you don't want to talk, you can type in the chat box. If you don't want to post any questions tonight. You can get in touch with Sian as well, or myself, if you've got any questions about anything that either of us have discussed tonight. Our details will be posted on the page. But yeah, if anybody would like to ask a question now, it's time to do so. And then it's silent. No.
We need to, this is where we need like thinking music, right?
Yeah, I know.
Just
I know.
like-
Maybe for the people that are here, it might be a specific situation that you've had to deal with or that you're dealing with at home. It could be in an educational context, or it could be in a big emotion context as well. Please feel free to reach out and ask any questions now, because we're happy to help you out with anything. And yeah, I just can't thank you enough for coming tonight, Sia.
It's been a pleasure, Bridie, as per usual. I love talking to you.
I know we could talk for hours.
We could and we do. So
yeah, and I think it's really fabulous for people to see that there are so many resources in our local community. We're just a click away at the moment. If anybody needs to sort of, you know, they're struggling, or you need to reach out, you can do so. We're all in it together, as we keep hearing.
That's right.
And if we can support you or give you some strategies that are going to make your life easier, then, you know, then I feel awesome about that. And I know you're in the same place, Sian. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we are all in this together, and we do have so many tools and so much information to share to actually help people. So you know, I kind of reflect and think this could be an opportunity for us all to actually really grow our toolbox.
Yeah.
For ourselves and our children, you know, so we could come out of this actually at a much better point than we were before. That's my hope. That's my hope for families.
Yeah, me too. So thank you so much. There will be a recording. Sian and I were having a good old chat before we realised that we weren't going live. So we were talking lots. So there, if you missed the start, which I know most people did miss a little bit of that discussion about trauma, which is really, really relevant. This will be generated as a recording, and it will be put back onto the Facebook site. Now, I know people have logged in, and some people have got their cameras, and some people's names are there. So I'll try and block them out. If you're not comfortable with that being displayed on Facebook, please just private message me, and I'll make sure that your image or your name is blocked out, because I can do that. But yeah, I'm just so grateful. And, you know, maybe in the future we can do this again, Sian, because you have so much knowledge, and we have literally just touched the
yeah, it's we have literally scratched the surface.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, when you're new to hearing this, it can be overwhelming. So if you're a parent or an educator that has come along tonight and haven't, you know, you've seen these emotions or you're seeing these behaviors but haven't been able to understand why, you know that there are reasons behind it, and know that there are strategies that can help with that as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And just be kind to yourselves. Everyone is doing as much as they can do right now.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. There's Pippa. So thank you, everyone. The recording should be up in about an hour. Usually takes a little bit of time to process. Be safe, be well. If there's any topics that you would like discussed in the future, please just drop me a line or contact Sian as well, because she often does live Facebook. We had to do it through Zoom to get both of us on together because Facebook decided to take away the live share. So we had to do it through Zoom, but you know what? That's okay. We'll make it work. So reach out, stay safe, be kind to yourselves, and reach out if you need help. And thank you so much for coming tonight, everybody.
Thanks so much, Bridie. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.